Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Mediator. Today, I have Alex Tan with me, all the way from Singapore. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hi, Aman. Hi, all the audience of Marketing Mediator. Nice to meet all of you, and thanks for having me here.
Thanks, Alex. You're joining all the way from Singapore. So, I wanted to kick this off. I know your
Mm.
background, but it would be great if you tell our audiences a little bit about your background. And I would be more interested in knowing that how did you get into this whole field of e-commerce, marketing, advertising?
Mm. Yeah, maybe I can also start off with something that you may not know as well. You know,
Yes.
I I actually started my career as a graphic designer. I'm not sure whether you know this or not.
No,
Yeah,
dude. Even I
so
didn't know this.
exactly. So not a lot of people know that, I started my career in the early stage as a graphic designer. I was a graphic designer for couple of years, right? And the whole idea of being a graphic designer to be in the role is to really inspire with creativity. But when I came out to the work field, this wasn't really the case because I was put into roles whereby I'm doing ads placement in yellow pages. You know how exciting this kind of role is? and and supermarket weekly shopping sales ads. So it really blew up my whole inspiration of like trying to be the most creative person in an agency to really try to put my skills into the work. And then I moved on to perhaps that point in time was on technology with mobile computing. So I was with this company doing and working a lot on the mobile content creation. So there were a lot of telcos collaboration churning out interesting premium content in sports, in entertainment, and following that the path, it led me to working on business and marketing for consumer brands, for beauty, for personal care, as well as consumer health and nutrition. And throughout my whole career, I was not only based out of Singapore, I have also been working in Malaysia for a couple of years, in China, as well as in Myanmar. So that is pretty much like, my career. And how I ended up where I was because, when I was in Myanmar and in China, so I have a calling because, my wife was saying that, hey, please come back. The kids are very, very young. So and because joining an advertising agency, right, was my boyhood dream because I studied in communication design.
Oh,
So I
wow.
took this opportunity to say, hey, finally, I will be able to, realize my dream to join an advertising agency. And here we are. Here we are. So we are
Awesome.
colleagues and we have worked together. Yep.
Awesome. That's a
Mm,
great background. I love that you've worked in different fields, different
yeah.
skill
Mm,
sets, and also like different geographies in our region, right?
mm,
Awesome.
mm,
So, Alex, you touched upon your formal training and education.
mm,
So, my question to you is, people who want to work in marketing, advertising, or for example, working in e-commerce
mm,
function, do you
mm,
really think that formal training, for example, the one which you had,
mm.
really helps you in any way, or it's more of learning on the job itself?
I would say probably a yes and no. Okay. Apart from having this, working on the communications in the earlier part, I also took an MBA with University of Birmingham. So what I learned essentially through the communications design is really about coming up with campaigns, right, to create that brand equity, to generate that brand love that people love, right? So we study a lot of, textbooks or books on Ogilvy, great advertisers, and what have you. So when I have a chance to further my education with the MBA, that literally blew my mind in the terms of what I can use in the frameworks that I am studying for my day-to-day work. So to answer your question on whether does this really apply back to the e-commerce, I say yes, because you still need to have that broad overview on what are you really want to achieve out of the e-commerce. But at the same time, I think probably that stops at that stage whereby a lot of the rest of the nuances work streams, technicality on making it work right is really very on the job learning. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So it's mix of both, but what I'm hearing is getting some kind of formal education actually helps you. You have to upgrade your skills, but it gets your foundation strong, right?
Mm,
Awesome. So, Alex, let's get into the more interesting part. And
mm,
I've been looking forward to you having on the show because, as you know, I'm trying to have conversations with people who work in different functions and with different backgrounds, and understand their perspective on how they are actually helping the branch grow.
mm,
So, tell me about your experience in working in a larger agency, working with
mhm,
multiple brands,
mhm,
and
mhm,
I want you to speak from the angle of e-commerce. That how do you, as an expert in e-commerce,
mm,
help
mm,
the brands to grow?
mm. Okay, I'm just going to take one step back to give a
Mhm.
quick intro. I
Sure.
feel that the role that I am with now is really like a bridge, right? To really be the bridge for brand values, for brand love, to connect to the consumer needs. So what we do in e-commerce is really to use e-commerce as a platform to try to craft, okay, to craft this unique value propositions of the brand, of the product, and with the strategies around it, right? To not only try to drive the sales and the GMV, that's number one, right? But also to try to foster and forge that brand loyalty. We all know that now e-commerce, right? It can be very, very transactional. When you have discounts, people buy, and when you don't have discount, people will just skip to another player or another offering. So essentially, what we want to do is not only to drive the GMV, but we also try to drive that engagement through the loyalty that people will still think that you are worth that amount that I want to pay for the extra as well. And essentially, that's what I think about in terms of the e-commerce wise. Yeah. Mm,
Interesting, interesting. So my follow-up question on that is, see, in last, I would say like 5 to 10 years,
mm,
around the world, or in our region also, my background is from India, and the
mm,
D2C brands have grown so much. Some of them have become unicorns, right? We know
yeah.
what is happening,
Mm,
fueled by the growth in even marketplaces, Shopee, Lazada. We have Amazon and Flipkart in
yeah.
India, and then there is also going directly to the consumer with Shopify and social commerce and all that stuff. What I've observed is, working with these different brands and talking to colleagues, is there is some kind of fundamental difference in the thought process itself of a brand which is primarily a D2C brand, which has actually used e-commerce to be where it is right now.
Mm,
Probably now it is growing big, going
mm,
offline
mm,
and all
mm,
that stuff.
mm, mm,
Whereas a lot of people who have only worked with bigger brands like P&Gs and Unilevers of the world,
mm,
which are already big,
mm,
they have
mm,
a different mindset. Uh,
mm,
what is the root cause of these different mindsets? Like, what is your point on that?
mm. Yeah, I can share my experiences based on the past work that I've done, right? So previously I was working in Myanmar, in China. We work with all the small, medium, or the D2C brands. The key observations is that their approach in marketing, in advertising, has always been very, very different from what I'm experiencing, with all the P&G, Colgate Palmolive, Unilever, and the likes of all
Exactly.
this like big giant FMCG, right? So maybe I can relate based on this in the fact that traditional advertising, right, has always been come across as a one size fits all kind of a strategy to be used by big giant conglomerates, right? So it's literally what we learned in the past about above the line, below the line, and then what we have now is that we have all this like small, used to be small D2C brands. They are using another kind of ways of working with advertising, with marketing, and showing a lot of success through what we call the growth marketing. And then some of these brands, right, they can use these new techniques or tactics to craft personalized and targeted digital strategies to meet their goals, to meet
Mhm.
their objectives. And I think this is really something that has caused a lot of wake up in terms of like standing up to what gotta be learned
Yeah.
in bigger companies, in larger and more established brands.
Mhm.
And I also think that through this whole journey of my career wise, right? The consumption of advertising, right, and the impact of the advertising has also changed a lot already. So, for instance, like some brands, right, they can even do without advertising. Okay,
Yeah.
there are a lot of brands that I can share with you. Like for example, in Singapore, we have these two upstart startup with Stera and Prism. In China, we also used to have Xiaomi. Xiaomi has always been very, very innovative. They don't rely on the traditional way of advertising. They have
Mm-hmm.
always been very prescriptive in terms of connecting the features to the consumer needs
Mm-hmm.
and what have you, right? So I think that while the MNCs large FMCG brands can still work on its traditional advertising approach, but they also realize that they have to employ a more 360 outlook on how they can use the overall digital strategies to win in the e-commerce space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. I think that's a great learning for our audiences, right? It's just two different ways or different directions where these two brands are coming from, right? If you are very
Yes.
big, everybody already knows you. You are trying to use advertisement to bring that brand salience. You're trying to reach as many
Mm,
people as you want,
mm,
but that
mm,
doesn't mean the way e-commerce companies have been built or digital
mm,
first brands have been built. They have also
mm,
proven it that the way they have been working. For example, you said sometimes they
mm,
don't use advertisement in that traditional sense, but
mm,
they would understand the market. They would create those features and try
mm.
to match it with certain cohorts, and that's how they will reach out. And I think Xiaomi, OnePlus, they have been like great examples, right? They
Yes.
initially never saw their advertisements. They would do these pre-launches,
Mm,
book your thing, right? Everything is happening on
mm,
e-commerce. Much
mm,
later, I think, when they must have reached some kind of threshold, they started
mm,
doing other things, right? Like for example, physical
mm.
distribution or doing the brand building exercises also.
Yeah.
So that explains that why there are
Yeah.
these two different mindsets.
And
Um,
also, maybe I can also add on, right? So when we talk about D2C brands,
mhm.
it literally translates as direct to consumer, right?
Yes.
So the only way I feel that those D2C brands are going to reach out to the customer is to really establish this very direct conversation to
Mhm.
have that clear engagement with their consumers. So
Mhm.
my key observation in China, for example, when they're doing their e-commerce PDP or even like when they're doing some campaigns or mini programs, right? It is always very prescriptive in terms of relating the key features
Mhm.
to their lifestyles of their
Yeah.
shoppers. So, whereas, for example, in the space of FMCG, right,
Mhm.
it's more of an aspirational kind of solving problems. Like, hey, we are talking about how can we make you happy. So, happy is a very, very abstract and of course, it's a very aspirational, but it's just a different way of engaging the consumers, right? So
Mhm.
hence I see this two different type of objective between the large established brands vis-a-vis the smaller or the D2C brands when they are coming out to do their marketing strategies.
hmm So, Alex, my another follow-ups,
Mm,
after you were talking, I
mm,
realized that there's also a lot of debate in our world about brand versus performance, and who
mm,
best to ask you this question. So, if I kind of talk about studies and marketing sciences,
mm,
right? A lot of marketing science has proven time and again that brand building is really really important, and there are some numbers also. For example, studies show that the ratio between brand and performance ideally should be 60/40, depends on the brand
mm,
you are,
mm, mm,
but
mm, mm,
slightly overspend on the brand. And the studies also show that if you spend money on brand building, it also helps you in your performance, right?
mm.
Sometimes the kind of vision they take or the time zones they take, brand building is longer, right? For
Yeah.
example, a branding would only come into effect if after 1 year,
Mm,
right? Or you are
mm,
looking at consumers after 2 years, depends on the
mm.
category. So the examples you were taking, are you saying that those guys do not think about brand at all? It's all performance in a way?
So it depends. So
Mm-hmm.
the correct answer is it depends. So
Mm-hmm.
when we look at the D2C, what does it depend? It depends on the budget, right? So if you are a startup, if you are at maybe the seeding round or round A in terms of the funding, you don't have a lot. You have probably 1-2 million to work on for your go to market, right? And how much are you going to put for your brand
Yeah.
building. So
True.
obviously you are going for performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I have witnessed brands that builds brand because of acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, you can always look up these two local brands. They started like a couple of years ago, right? Stera and Prism.
Yeah.
What they essentially is trying to put across is that, you know, I'm trying to sell you my TVs or my air purifiers at a fraction of the cost, and you get the value out of it. And people buy that kind of a value proposition, and
Mm-hmm.
hence word of mouth spreads. The content become viral. There were a lot of engagement, share of voices in the social media saying how good is the brand, how much value they have, capture, from the purchase, from the
Mm-hmm.
consumption, and that helps to build the brand.
Yeah.
So it is not the message that builds the brand, but it's really the consumption, the acquisition process that builds the whole equity out of it. So there's also some kind of a ways of thinking when we say, D2C have a unique way of attaining brand equity wise.
No, I kind of agree. I mean, if I don't talk as a marketeer and if I talk about as a consumer, I
Mm,
think when I first purchased a product of Xiaomi, right?
mm.
Uh, I think we had this conversation before, one on one. I realized in 6 months, from one, I had like seven products, and I don't know how it happened, right? It was like magic, right? I
Yes,
was like,
yes.
oh my God, like I used one product and then I started getting retargeted, for example. And
Mm,
because now they do a lot of O2O, every place I was sitting and having my coffee, because I go for coffee after my lunch in this mall
uh-huh.
in Bangkok, right? Next to me, there was this just experiential space of Xiaomi, like,
Mm,
pop up all the
mm.
products. And I realized that every time I would drink coffee and I would say, oh wow, that air purifier looks good, right? Oh, that fan looks good. And when I would look at the price and compare it to, established brand, I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So it's a smart way of, so we can't say that they're just focusing on performance. It's just a different way of doing performance at the same time building the brand too. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. As what I said earlier, it's really about delivering or crafting and delivering the unique value
Yeah.
proposition of your brand,
Hmm.
connecting with your consumers with this shared value.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is really something because all products are good products. I believe that all products are good products.
Hmm.
All brands are good brands. But it's a matter on who will be your audience, right? Who will be
Yeah.
the shoppers that resonates to your value. So the whole extension of the shared value is also one of the critical consideration when you
Hmm.
are employing your advertising or your marketing strategy.
Hmm. Got
Mm-hmm,
it. So next, I want to like change gears slightly a little bit, right?
mm-hmm,
Another thing which I get asked a lot, right, about e-commerce is,
mm.
I'm coming from a brand world, right? When brands are trying to do something on e-commerce, their first reaction after a few days is that, oh my God, how many players am I supposed to deal with, right? That's, so there is agency which is crafting the communication and all that stuff. They are e-commerce enablers who are doing your fulfillment, and with fulfillment they are also doing additional services. There is sometimes overlap. Then you have very specific performance media agencies,
Mm,
special on Amazon, special on
mm.
Shopee,
Yep,
all that stuff. And then
yep.
there are content creation, again specialized shops only for your PDP and all that stuff, right?
Mm,
And then you have influencers who say that we specialize in, social commerce or e-commerce, and all that stuff. So how does one, as a brand marketeer, kind of navigate this complex ecosystem of e-commerce?
I guess as a marketer, right? So in order to successfully navigate this whole ecosystems of different players, right, is to first identify and understand your winning objective. That's number one, and what they can do for you. Let's try to unpack this together, shall we? So, for example, right, if we talk about okay, in the beginning stage, you will probably consider about, oh yeah, I have to work with e-commerce enablers, right? So essentially, what does e-commerce enablers do? Okay, so they pretty much help you to establish that connection with the marketplace, if you're working on a marketplace, or the D2C site, Shopify, and they help you to put your products there and allow people to have a transaction with you. Of course, they have a direct communication with the marketplace, so they are like a liaison, right? So the marketplace, the brand manager, the account manager will come up with campaign for double digit festivals, They'll say, hey, let's do this category. Let's come out with a 50% discount for this special double date festival. Are you in or are you out? And what other stuff can you provide? So they are like a liaison to communicate this downstream to the brand owners. And that's what they do. Can they really do more than that? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know, okay? But at the same time, think about the core function, why they even exist. It's really to enable your e-commerce. It's so simple to understand, right? And you talk about some special performance media. You see a lot of Facebook, Instagram say that they make $1 million. They show you the dashboard of Amazon. They
Always.
show you, you know what I'm trying to say, right? They are like
Yeah.
a guru, right? So again, right, they are still essentially talking about the paid growth. Kudos to them. They done well in their stream, right, in their industry. But at the end of the day, it is still the paid growth. Do you have an appetite for paid growth for your brand? And how much is your budget? And how sustained is this going to be? Because if you really understand about the paid growth, right, once the money stop coming in, you don't have any more growth.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, because this becomes it's a zero-sum game. You don't put
Yeah.
anything, you don't get anything out at all, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you talk about creative shots, creating PDP for you, these are people service providers that tries to help you to differentiate your offering.
Mm-hmm.
In China, there are like thousands and thousands of all these creative shop. They can do all this like very nice aesthetic PDP, A plus content, rich content for you. What they really want to do is help to get your products to stand out visually, at least, right? And we have um lately now TikTok is very on the hype, right? And then the content creators. So what does the content creator really do is really to help us to engage with our audience, because we
Mm-hmm.
want to target a certain demographic of the profile of customers. So they are the one that creates all this content with their followings to connect to your future audience, to connect to your future prospects, right? And last but not least, we have the likes of like Amazon, the marketplaces, right?
Mm-hmm.
The platforms owner in the technology space, like social, like Lazada, Shopee, and now we have the social commerce in TikTok shops.
Yeah.
Of course, we have the D2C, we have the Shopify, we have the WooCommerce Play as well. So these are essentially just a platform for you to embark on to harvest the synergy of curation, so that you have so many different products and people really want to have some shopping experience to come in and then have the discovery of the products, have a discovery of the brand, and then maybe you can have some conversion in that platform as well. So
Mm-hmm.
if you kind of break it down, is that you first of all you have to really understand what do you want to grow first. You can't,
Exactly.
for example, if you are doing 1 million in your marketplace already, do you still want your enabler to push to 2 million for you? Maybe
Yeah.
they are not the best person to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need some other players in the market to bring you to that next level of the success, right?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, this is what I'm trying to put across to you.
No, I think nicely explained, Alex. And let's talk about TikTok, right? So it seems every country or everybody in the world basically has a love and hate relationship with TikTok. It's in
Yeah.
news for all the good reasons and bad, right? Uh, Before I get into Indonesia, which I want to speak to you about,
Mm,
my
mm,
first question is: so when marketers, especially brand teams, they're trying to look at TikTok shops, right? Now, traditionally, there has been clear demarcation between, oh, this is brand team, this is trade team, right?
mm,
These guys are doing brand love, generating demand, and all that stuff.
mm,
Sales team is looking after the number. They're ensuring there is physical availability, the margins are there, or the trade support, the spends are being given to all the marketplaces or retailers and all that stuff. And then when TikTok has started becoming big, like really,
mm,
really big in certain countries,
mm,
you realize that there are two thought processes, right?
mm,
Uh, there is a very clear thought process that TikTok Shop is a retail channel, right? Yes, it is mixed with entertainment. That's fine. But because the conversions are happening then and there, no matter what the engagement is or content creators are there, so I would see it as a one-stop solution. This is my retail sales, right? And then the brand marketer would say, no, this is more about brand love. This is more about engagement. While I am entertaining those people, there also needs to be something about my brand,
mm,
right? Now, I don't know what is right and what is wrong, but I would want to talk about this. Like, what is your perspective? How would you explain
mm.
this to somebody who's sitting in a marketing department today?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to express my feelings about TikTok first, right? So I think I like TikTok because it really helps our role in
Uh-huh.
terms of facilitating the conversation between the brand team and
Mm-hmm.
then the marketing team.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, you have put it aptly right, already, right? So the marketing team will really look at the brand engagement, the brand love, the brand equity aspect in terms of the activation. And
Mm-hmm.
then the trade team, the brand team, sometimes they do consider a little bit more, but at the same time, they are more on the numbers side, the
Mm-hmm.
revenue, the conversion, the GMV side of the business, the art and the science, basically, right? So when we have TikTok and when TikTok being popularized in this part of the world, right, I start to have observed, right, when we have discussion about TikTok, we have the e-com team coming to the discussion. We have the marketing team together to talk about it because essentially TikTok is about shoppertainment. So when we
Uh-huh.
talk about shopper, it's talk about the brand love, the engagement, and how we can use all this brand love and engagement to activate and to monetize. And that's whereby the trade team will comes in, the e-commerce team will comes in. In the past, if you talk about activation in Shopee, usually you will just end up with the e-commerce team and
Very
maybe the trade
simple.
team as a whole. Very, very direct, right? Because now there's an element of the entertainment on the marketing strategy, and hence this is the reason why I like about TikTok. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I felt that this could be a future. But before I say that, right, actually, I also think that perhaps Facebook should be the one that could have done this successfully years
Yeah.
and years and years ago.
Yeah.
It is just that because they were not from China, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because in China, everything is commerce.
Yeah.
Everything is commerce first, right? So that's why they have this like culture, and then the whole culture will just explode into the rest of the part of the region as well as the whole globally. So, but going back to TikTok, right? So it's really about having them propelling e-commerce, social commerce, conversation commerce to the whole new level of engagement. What we essentially trying to, decode what TikTok or Shoppertainment is trying to do is, to have establish a much more deeper level of engagement with your shopper, your consumer, your audience. And that's what we think that makes it magical about TikTok. But at the same time, there are, the flip side, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it is going too fast, if it's going too aggressive, there are a lot of news about what's happening. I mean, you heard of all the news, right, of cannibalizing the market, you
Mm-hmm.
know, making the market topsy turvy and what have you. So this is like the pros and the cons of having TikTok, I should say. But
Mm-hmm.
I hope that really kind of like clarifies and help you to understand my position.
Mhm. But for example, what is happening? You touched upon it.
Mm,
What is happening in Indonesia, right? Like you see the growth of TikTok shops. It was almost touching. It was about to take over. For example, Shopee.
mm,
The gap between them was becoming very very small. And in past weeks, you have heard a lot of laws coming in from the lawmakers in
mm,
Indonesia.
yeah.
Uh, I know it's hard to say what will happen, but what is your kind of prediction that
Mm,
how do you see the role of
mm,
TikTok happening in
mm.
Southeast Asian countries in next few years?
Yeah. So there's two layers to this consideration why the local authorities, the government is even thinking about making this kind of drastic
Mm-hmm.
um reaction. I would say reaction, right? So number one, the touted project S. I worked in China for a couple of years before, right? So
Yeah.
we talk about drop shipping because it's very D2C, and that's how a lot of big brands that you may not heard of like 3-4 years ago, Shein,
Yes.
Shein,
Huge now. Yeah.
huge now, right? They have a bigger market capitalization than Zara, than
Mm-hmm.
all this H&M now, and they are D2C, and they are based out of China. Okay, I even know where they source their goods in the beginning, in the first stage, right? I helped them to do some of the drop shipping work and logistics as well when I was in the beginning stage. So what I'm trying to say is that so the project S, right, basically is trying to sell very very cheap pricing products with predatory prices, right, to knock the socks off the local sellers, the vendors. That is something that the government really would like to put a stop to it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, they are thinking about the future consequences if like the social media and the commerce in the top shop is happening together. And people are starting to buy more and more things. People are buying things that they don't even want because it's
Mm-hmm.
all on impulse. You know how TikTok works. The algorithm hits you once, not once but twice, 10 times, 20 times until you
Yeah,
give up and say, I want to buy this because TikTok makes me buy this. you
exactly,
know,
exactly.
you know what I'm trying to say? There's a lot of societal consideration on getting people to buy something considerably, right? Also, doesn't make sense for that. That's a whole to me. My own personal opinion is the consideration is on the local, the community, the local, small and micro enterprises. At the same time, as a society, right? How are you going to manage this whole purchase and how people are shifting their mindset in terms of consumerism? I think
Mm-hmm.
this is something the government is looking at and everybody's looking at as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. I think
Mm.
we will have to, kind of wait and watch on what happens in each country, because it seems everybody takes their own decisions, especially what is happening geopolitically right now. Like India banned TikTok many years ago,
Mm,
whereas
mm,
it started picking up in Southeast Asia. It has been picking up a lot on US. So
mm.
this is something which I think everybody is keenly watching. That what is the future of TikTok? Awesome. Let's get to the fun part now. I have like few rapid fire kind of questions, not many but few. Just tell me whatever comes to your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So Alex, my first one
Mm,
is that, do you have like a favorite book on marketing
mm.
or e-commerce?
Okay. I have always been a fan of underdogs, right? So
Mm-hmm.
many years ago I picked up this book. It's called Guerrilla Marketing by some J. Conrad Levinson. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really about using the least amount of money to have the maximum impact. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So since I read that book, I will envision a lot of very creative marketing strategies for our client, okay, for my client, right? So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, previously I was working for a project, right? It is they are selling this new type of sugar-free sachet, right? So I was, thinking about being inspired by this book a lot. I was telling and thinking about, is it possible that we can, have like PG girls, promotion girls dressed up in the cheerleader
Mm-hmm.
costume, going to Starbucks, ordering Starbucks coffee, and then putting this sugar-free sachets right
Mm-hmm.
into the drink, and after they leave, they will put the sachet into the whole container, and when the other rest of the customer, when they want to pick up their brown sugar and their cane sugar, they have the third option, which is my client's sugar-free option.
Oh, so cool.
So and it is like, obviously maybe you'll get sued, you'll get some warning, but this is all what we want. We want to get viral
Yeah,
because
exactly.
this is
That's
really about the guerrilla marketing. So that kind of mentality going into like solving problems, nowadays is quite inspirational for me lah. Basically,
mm-hmm.
if the client has the appetite,
Mm-hmm.
all in, man. Yeah.
Okay. And my second one is that, which is your favorite brand?
Yeah, I think it is. Xiaomi is my favorite brand. But let me share you a story about why it is my favorite brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know that I work in China
Yeah.
back then, right? So I went to this because I need to facilitate my communication to not only my colleagues and everybody, right? So I bought my spare phone, right? So I was brought to this plaza. So this is plaza whereby you have all the mobile computing, electronic gadgets, right? Where you can have everything. So me being in Singapore, I only know Chinese brand, probably Xiaomi back then. So I went ahead. There were so many, there were hundreds and hundreds of sellers and vendors, right? And I asked, I think at least 5 to 10 sellers. I said, I want the Xiaomi mobile phone. They all say that, sorry, we don't sell Xiaomi mobile phone. I said, but Xiaomi is quite popular, right? Why are you not selling? Because I saw the sales in Alibaba, in
Yeah.
Tmall. They're doing a great job.
Yeah.
But why are they not selling? Then it comes to realization that actually because they really want to be a direct to consumer, so they
Exactly.
do not want to even pay the extra to the intermediary. So all the savings will eventually go to the end consumers that are buying. Hence, they are also a very strong advocacy of D2C in terms of using the ecosystems of e-commerce, okay, to do the exact transaction. Of course, I end up buying Huawei. Okay, that was my first contact with Huawei. But I also like Xiaomi because if you look at the whole journey of Xiaomi, right, with Lei Jun, right, previously they really started off with just mobile phones, right, mobile devices, right. And look at the journey now they are in our home and living space, air
Everywhere.
purifier, vacuum cleaner, and even like I just saw this aquarium fish tank. They are also
Yes.
designing fish tank nowadays. So so uh so I think that it's not because they have a lot of money to or they have very very big ambition, but I think the whole philosophy of C to B comes alive in them. We know a lot about business to consumer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we do not know much about consumer to business.
Mm-hmm.
They have very strong listening ears to have social listening to understand what do you like, Aman,
Mm-hmm.
what do you like,
Exactly.
and they collect all this data. They know that this is what you like, and if they are able to offer something of a value to you, immediately the brand love is established.
No, I
Okay.
completely agree, Alex. And like I was telling
Mm.
you, once you buy a product, maybe first time you are a little bit apprehensive, right? That am I buying the right, product? But I think once you buy it, of course, the products are good, they work really well. But like you said, they start understanding their consumers so well. They somehow find out that what are the other, consumption occasions, what are the other appliances they can offer, and it feels like so seamless, right? That slowly your home is becoming like a Xiaomi home. Dude,
A Xiaomi shop.
that's brilliant. Yeah. That's brilliant. So
Yeah,
that's your
yeah,
favorite brand. Okay, a
yeah. Mm.
slightly tough one. If you were
Mm.
to choose one out of these, branding or performance?
It depends on the budget.
No, you
I would.
can't. You can't say it depends. This is rapid fire round, dude.
Okay, sure. I would say still branding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because at the end of the day, whether we are doing performance or we're doing hardcore branding, we still want to build that engagement, that affinity with the consumers.
Yeah.
And if we have that part sorted out, right, and the next thing will lead to the performance already.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, it will just come by itself. Because I do not want to focus, in this case, right, performance because it just been very, very transactional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Good pick.
Mm.
Good pick. I like it. Okay. The last one, Alex. And before I ask the question, you cannot be diplomatic about the answer. Okay. You have to answer it. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So since you work in agency,
Mm.
out of these set of peoples,
Oh
who
no.
do you hate the most? A, creative. B, brand managers. C, trade teams. 4, finance. 5, strategy planners.
Hate myself the most.
No diplomat. Like you're sounding like a politician.
Okay. I feel that well, in each roles, right, we all have our different objective, right? And I really do not see any differences if we are on the same sheet whereby we really understand how to create the value for our client in terms of really, I'm not talking about e-commerce, I'm not talking about the strategies, I'm not
Yeah.
talking about the finance. Anyone in the company, in every department, should be on board, okay, with the same frequency, with the same wavelength of understanding the importance of consumer engagement, branding, establishing the long-term value, okay, and typically, we would like to get everybody to have this understanding, but we all know that we are all different, right? And that's why you ask this very difficult question for me. So,
No, Alex, I love that
yeah.
answer because in a way, like I said before, that is the whole point. I started this podcast, Marketing Mediator. I
Mm.
mean, we all have different skill sets. We have some subtasks to do, but as long as we are on the same page, like you rightly said, right? No matter what field you work in or I work in fact, even people who are working in procurement and finance, right?
Yeah.
If we understand we are all trying to do the same thing, then you never have any issues.
This is absolutely right. I fully support what you have mentioned as well. Yep.
Awesome, Alex. I think it has been a really great conversation. We are almost hitting the time. I did not even realize, it's already like 40 minutes. The conversation was going so smoothly. Maybe last one, Alex. People who are listening to us and people who
Mm,
really are interested in getting into e-commerce, like building a specialization, somebody like
mm,
you, right,
mm.
in larger set of marketing ecosystem, so that somebody can be a specialist in e-commerce but can work with the larger marketing teams, brand teams. Would you give a very short advice to them?
Very simple. E-commerce is just a channel. Whether
Hmm.
it is e-commerce, it's social commerce, it is like your retail distribution, modern trade, traditional trade. What you want to do is really to help your client, the brand, to create that value, to foster the trust between the brand and the customers or the consumers, and consistently trying to deliver the same kind of equality. And always remember to keep the consumers at the center of everything in your consideration.
I love that answer because I know this is what we are supposed to do, but we sometimes we forget this, right? And if we keep coming back to the thing that nothing matters at the end of the day, it's customer who matters, right?
Exactly.
If you
Exactly.
understand him, if you serve him, no matter what ways you are using, you will
Mm.
always succeed as a person
Yes.
and also like as an organization. So,
Yes.
Alex, loved having this discussion. As I told you, I was really looking forward to have this conversation, and I'm really happy that we had this conversation. It was so free flowing. Before we end the show, I would like to request audiences that if you like this show, subscribe to us, share it with somebody who is having similar kind of conflicts in mind. Maybe this conversation and perspective of Alex would help you to diffuse that tension or learn a little bit more about how marketing is done, how e-commerce is done. So that was me, Aman, and Alex. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming to the show.
Thank you.